We continue now at the top of Daf Lamed Beis Amid Beis Meseches Nazir. This is Nazir Daf 32b. On the previous Amid, the Mishnah said, let's say a person takes a vow of Nazirus, and then he finds that the animal that he was going to use as a carbon was stolen, so he regrets the Nazirus. So it depends. If the animal was stolen before the vow was taken, so then that's a reason that he could undo the Nazirus. However, if the animal became stolen only after he took the vow of Nazirus, so he's not allowed to say that I now regret the Nazirus because the animal was stolen, because at the time he took upon himself the Nazirus, the animal was not stolen, so that is not a reason to undo the Nazirus. That's what the Mishnah here says. Again, if he took upon himself the vow of Nazirus after the animal was already stolen, Eino Nazir. So then he's not a Nazir, he can undo the Nazirus. He can say, I regret the Nazirus because I wasn't aware at the time that I took upon myself the Nazirus that this animal was stolen. And the Mishnah continues, V'zu ta'us ta Nachum Hamadi. It was this mistake that Nachum Hamadi actually made, Kisha'olu Nazirim in Hagola, when the Nazirim came up from the exile, Umatzo Beis HaMikdash Charav, and they found that the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. And so now they regretted their Nazirus, because they can't bring the Karbanos if there's no Beis HaMikdash. So Amar Lahem Nachum Hamadi. So Nachum Hamadi said to them, Ilu ha'yisam yodin shebeis hamikdash chariv ha'yisam nozrim. Had you known that the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, would you have taken upon yourselves the vow of Nazirus? Amru lo. They said to him, lo. They said we would never taken such a vow if we knew that the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. V'hitira Nachum Hamadi. And Nachum Hamadi, he permitted them. But when this matter came before the Chachamim, Amru, they said, like we just said in the Mishnah, that it depends when the Nazirus was taken upon the person, when the person took upon himself the Nazirus. They said as follows, Kol Nazar ad shelochara Beis HaMikdash Nazir. Anybody who took upon himself the vow of Nazirus before the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, even though subsequently the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, that person is a Nazir. Umishachara Beis HaMikdash. But anyone who took upon himself the vow of Nazirus, and it turns out that the Beis HaMikdash was already destroyed at the time of the vow, so then Eino Nazir. That person is not a Nazir. That Nazirus can be undone. And the Gemara says, Amar Rabba says, Shatfuhu Rabbanan Rabbi Eliezer. The Rabbanan overwhelmed Rabbi Eliezer with their arguments. V'ukme b'shitasayu. And Rabbi Eliezer came to agree with their opinion. The Tanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, Poschin benolad divrei Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer says you can create a Pesach to undo a neder even with something that is a new occurrence, something that wasn't true at the time of the neder. But we can say to the person, had you known this, would you have made the neder? And if he says no, so we can undo the neder. The Chachamim osrin, but the Chachamim say that's prohibited. You're not allowed to undo a neder using nolad, using some new occurrence. And we see in our Mishnah also, you can't use a new occurrence to undo the neder. We see like the Chachamim, and we don't find that Rabbi Eliezer argues in our Mishnah, and so therefore it seems that Rabbi Eliezer came to accept the opinion of the Chachamim. The Amar Rav and Rava says, Afagav do Amar Rabbanan named Poschin benolad. Even though the Rabbanan say you can't create a Pesach out of something new, Aval Poschin b'tnai nolad, but you are allowed to create a Pesach with a condition of nolad. Now, what does that mean? Hechidami, what exactly is the case of a tnai nolad? Amri lahon. So what we say, they say to him as follows: Ilu asa inish v'amar lachon. We say to them, let's say a person came and told you Techara Beis HaMikdash, that the Beis HaMikdash is going to be destroyed. Mihavin nadrisun, would you have made a neder in such a situation? In other words, we can't say to them that now the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. If at the time of the vow the Beis HaMikdash was not destroyed, that's not a good Pesach. But what we could say is, what if somebody would have come to you and told you that the Beis HaMikdash will be destroyed? So would you have made the neder? And if they say no, we would not have made the neder. So that does create a Pesach. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef says, if I was over there, Hava Mina Lahon, I would have told those individuals, those Nazirim, as follows. Haksiv, doesn't the pasuk say, Heichal Hashem, Heichal Hashem, Heichal Hashem, Hema? It says Heichal Hashem 3 times. Zem Mikdash Rishon and Mikdash Sheni. That refers to the Beis HaMikdash, the first Beis HaMikdash, and the second Beis HaMikdash, meaning it's clear from the pasuk that there's going to be a third Beis HaMikdash. So you should have known already from the pasuk that the second Beis HaMikdash would be destroyed, and that could be a reason to undo the Nazirus. And the Gemara responds to that, Nihi di yodin lahon diechrav. Granted that they knew that it would be destroyed, but mi yodin la'imasai, but would they know when it was going to be destroyed? So that's not really a good Pesach. The fact that they knew that at some point in time in the future the Beis HaMikdash will be destroyed, that's not a reason to undo the neder, to undo the vow of Nazirus. But the Gemara continues. Amar Abaya says, "V'lo yadin la'imus." Was it not known when it would be destroyed? V'haksiv. But the pasuk says in Sefer Daniel, "Shavuim shivim 77s nechdach alamcha v'alir kachach" are decreed against your nation and against your holy city. So there is a timeline of when the Beis Hamikdash would be destroyed. But the Gemara responds, "Vakati." But still, miyadin and b'hayuma. Do they really know what day it's going to be destroyed? Even though they know the general year it's going to be destroyed, still they don't really have a knowledge of the day of the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. And Rashi over here says, "V'haksib b'Daniel k'shehegla Nebuchadnezzar b'churban bayis rishon." It says in Sefer Daniel, when Nebuchadnezzar exiled them at the destruction of the first Beis Hamikdash, "Shavuim shivim nechtach al amcha ve'alir kachach l'chaus poshim u'lahasar chatoim." And we understand the pasuk to mean Shavuim shivim means shmitin asidin lavo mikan v'ad churban bayis sheni. There's going to be 77s of shmita that are going to occur until the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash. And what does that mean? Shivim Shana Shahayu beBavel. That refers to the 70 years of exile in Bavel between the first and second Beis Hamikdash, and then you add on V'arba Meos Ve'esrim Shahayu beBayis Sheni. Then there's another 420 years in the second Beis Hamikdash. Hare Shivim Shmitin. That refers to 70 Shmita cycles. Alma Yadi LeEmas Charv. You see that they did know when the second Beis Hamikdash would be destroyed. Amri Lach Rabbanan, and the Rabbanan respond, Kevin de Lo Yadi B'Hayuma, since they don't know what day it's destroyed. Mistama Adaita Debonoi Nidro. So it makes sense that when they made the neder, it was on the understanding that the Beis Hamikdash was still standing. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Hayu Mahalchin B'derech, if they're walking on the road, V'echad Ba connected, and there's one person coming opposite them, Amar Echad Mehen. Now one of the people in the group says, Hareini Nazir Shezeh Ploni, I'm a Nazir if this is so and so. V'echad Omer, another one says, Hareini Nazir She'ein Zeh Ploni, I'm a Nazir if that is not so and so. Hareini Nazir she'echad mikem Nazir. Someone else says, I'm a Nazir if one of you is a Nazir. She'ein echad mikem Nazir. Another person says, I'm a Nazir if one of you is not a Nazir. She'shnechem Nazirim, if you're both Nazirim. She'kulchem Nazirim, if you're all Nazirim. They all make these statements. Beis Shammai Omrim, Beis Shammai say, Kulon Nazir. And all of the people in this case, they're all going to be Nazirs. Beis Hillel Omrim, and Beis Hillel say, Eino Nazir elamisha lo neskaimu devarav. The only one that's going to be a Nazir is somebody whose words were not fulfilled. And the Gemara will explain why Beis Hillel say that someone's a Nazir if his words are not fulfilled. Rabbi Tarfon Omer, Rabbi Tarfon says, Ein echad mehem Nazir. None of them are going to be a Nazir. Now the Mishnah says here, Siyah la'achorov. Let's say that individual, he turns around, so they can never identify who he was. So ain't no Nazir, so then there's no Naziris in this case, because it's not clear who this person was. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Rabbi Shimon says, Yomar, each person should say, Im haya kedvari hareini Nazir chova. If what I said was accurate, then I'm a Nazir by obligation. V'im lav, and if not, hareini Nazir nadava. Then I'm going to volunteer to be a Nazir. In other words, Rabbi Shimon is saying, each Nazir should make this statement, each person should make this statement in order to avoid any doubt. And the Gemara says, Misha lo neskaimu devarav, am I have a Nazir? What does Beis Hillel mean? That the person whose words were not fulfilled, why should that person be a Nazir? On the contrary, if his words were not fulfilled, then he should not be a Nazir. And so Amar Rav Yehuda says, Ema, rather the Mishnah should say, Misha neskaimu devarav. It should say that Beis Hillel was saying, only the person whose words were fulfilled, only that person becomes a Nazir. We will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Lamed Gimel Amud Aleph.